1963. The young woman walking through this airport in a crisp airline uniform, drawing every eye in the terminal, had spent 4 hours the night before at her mother's kitchen table with a hot metal comb and the smell of her own hair against the heat, because looking the way the airline required was not, for her, a matter of vanity. It was the condition of being allowed to keep the job at all. Her name was Dela. She was 27 years old, and she was one of only a handful of Black stewardesses in the entire American sky, hired by a regional airline that had at last opened a door that every major carrier had kept bolted for decades. As she walked, she was very often the only Black woman in uniform that anyone in that terminal had ever seen. She knew it. She carried it in the set of her shoulders and the perfect press of her hair, because she understood something the smiling passengers did not. She was never going to be anybody's second choice. These are 20 things about Black women's hair in the 1950s and 60s, in an age when a Black woman's hair was never only about beauty, but about work, about dignity, about belonging, and about us a whole world of skill and love and community that most of the country never saw. Some of it is joyful. Some of it carries real pain, and we are not going to pretend otherwise. All of it belonged to a tradition that was, in its own right, magnificent. Number 11 is the reason a woman like Dela could not simply wear her hair the way it grew. Number 1 is not a technique at all, and it is the thing that was passed down along with all the others. Now, before we go further, tap that subscribe button. You will not want to miss what is coming next. Number 20, the hot comb, heated on the stove. Start with the single most important tool in the tradition, a metal comb, heated over the flame of a kitchen stove until it was hot enough to press the curl out of coarse, tightly coiled hair, drawing it straight from the roots outward. For generations of Black women, this was the Saturday evening ritual, the comb warming on the burner, the careful testing of its heat, the slow, deliberate work of pressing a whole head section by section. The smell of it, hair, and heat, and pressing oil is one that a great many people watching this will recognize instantly and be carried straight back to a particular kitchen and a particular woman doing their hair. Number 19, Saturday night for Sunday morning. The pressing was timed to the week. It was done on a Saturday evening so that the hair would be fresh and perfect for church on Sunday morning, the most important appearance of the week. This was the rhythm of it in countless households, the Saturday night ritual at the kitchen table, mother and daughter, or neighbor who had the gift, or the woman down the street who did hair. The work took hours, and it was woven into the deepest routines of family and faith and community. You pressed on Saturday, and you walked into church on Sunday with your head held high. Number 18, the kitchen beautician. Long before and alongside the professional salon, there was the woman in the neighborhood who did hair in her own kitchen. She was called the kitchen beautician, and she was an institution. For a small sum, or a favor traded, she pressed and styled the hair of the women and girls around her at her own stove in her own home. She was skilled, she was trusted, and she was often the beating social heart of a block. Getting your hair done at her table was not merely a service. It was a visit, a conversation, an afternoon inside a warm circle of women, and it held communities together. Number 17, the edges and the kitchen. The tradition had its own precise language for the parts of the head. The fine, delicate hair at the back of the neck, the most difficult to press, and the first to revert in humidity, was called the kitchen. The hair around the hairline was the edges, and laying the edges, smoothing and styling that delicate front hairline to perfection was an art unto itself. A woman whose edges were laid and whose kitchen was pressed smooth was a woman whose hair was done properly, completely, with nothing overlooked. These words were passed from mother to daughter like every other part of the craft. Number 16, the wrap to make it last. Once the hair was pressed straight, the work had to be protected because moisture was the enemy and a single rainstorm could undo 4 hours of labor. So at night, a woman wrapped her hair, combing it flat around her head in a smooth circle and securing it so that it would keep its shape and its shine while she slept. The wrap was a nightly discipline, the careful preservation of an expensive and time-consuming style, and it is a technique still taught and used today. Number 15, the satin scarf and the satin pillow. Cotton was the enemy. A cotton pillowcase drank the moisture and the oil out of pressed hair and roughed it up with friction overnight, ruining the press and drying the hair. So a woman tied her wrapped hair in a satin or silk scarf before bed, or slept on a satin pillowcase so that her hair would slide against the smooth fabric rather than snag and frizz. This was not a small thing. It was the difference between a press that lasted a week and one that was gone by Tuesday, and it was knowledge every woman in the tradition carried. Number 14, grease and oil for the scalp. The regimen included regular oiling of the scalp and the hair to keep both from drying out and breaking, especially under the stress of heat pressing. A mother would part her daughter's hair into sections and work the oil in along each part, a slow, tender, deeply familiar act. For countless people, the memory of sitting on the floor between their mother's knees, having their scalp greased and their hair parted and tended, is one of the most intimate memories of childhood they possess. The care was physical, and it was love made visible. Number 13, the woman who built an empire. You cannot tell this story without her. Sarah Breedlove, orphaned young, a washerwoman who suffered from scalp ailments and hair loss and set out to solve it, and who built from that a business empire so large that she became, by many accounts, the first female self-made millionaire in America. The world knows her as Madam Walker. She created a line of hair care products for Black women. She opened a school to train stylists, and she built an army of Black saleswomen who earned real independent incomes. She did not just sell hair care. She sold Black women a path to dignity and to money of their own in an age that offered them almost none. Number 12, the teacher who came before her. And before Madam Walker, there was the woman who taught her. Annie Malone built a hair care business and founded Poro College in Missouri in the early 1900s. A school that trained Black women to nourish and style Black hair and to sell the products that did it. Madam Walker was, in fact, one of Annie Malone's agents before she launched out on her own. This was a whole industry built by Black women for Black women, teaching skilled work and paying real wages at a time when nearly every other door was shut. The tradition was not only beautiful, it was economic power. Number 11, why she could not simply wear it natural. Now we come to the hard center of it, and we are going to be honest. A woman like Dela in 1963 could not simply wear her hair in its natural coiled texture and expect to keep a job in an airline cabin or in many offices or in many public roles. The straightened style was not merely a fashion she preferred. Straight hair was red, by the white world that controlled the jobs as orderly, professional, and acceptable, and natural black hair was unjustly and painfully read as the opposite. Pressing her hair was, in part, the price of admission to a world that had decided her natural self was not welcome in it. That is not a happy fact. It is a true one, and the women who lived it deserve to have it told plainly. Number 10, good hair and bad hair. Out of all of this grew a hierarchy that caused real and lasting harm inside the community itself, and it had a name. Good hair meant hair that was straighter, softer, looser in its curl, closer to a European texture. Bad hair meant hair that was tightly coiled, kinky, coarse, the natural texture of most black hair. These were not neutral descriptions. Good hair was tied to beauty, to marriageability, to jobs, to status, and a child could absorb very early the painful message that the hair growing out of her own head was somehow wrong. This is one of the deepest wounds of the whole story, and its echoes are still felt today. Number 9, the relaxer. Alongside the hot comb was the chemical path to straight hair, the relaxer or perm, which permanently altered the structure of the hair to loosen its curl. The first chemical relaxer is credited to Garrett Morgan, a black inventor who stumbled onto it around 1909. It was developed much further by a black entrepreneur named George Johnson, who in 1956 built a hugely successful relaxer product, first for men and then for women, and it was in constant demand. The relaxer offered weeks of straightened hair without the nightly battle against humidity, and it became a central part of black hair care for generations, carrying both its convenience and its controversy. Number 8, the debate that never ended. Here is something important. Black women themselves argued about all of this then and now. Some saw pressing and relaxing as a practical tool, a way to have more styles and more opportunities in the world as it actually was. Others argued that it pandered to a European standard of beauty and taught black women to erase their natural selves. This was not a settled question handed down from outside. It was and is a living debate inside the community, carried on with real passion and real love on every side. And it is not my place to end it. It is only my place to tell you that it was always there. Number 7, the Salon as sanctuary. The Black Beauty Salon was one of the most important institutions in American life that most of white America knew nothing about. It was a black-owned business in an era when those were hard to build and harder to keep. It was a place of employment and independence for black women. And it was a sanctuary, a space entirely their own, where black women could gather, talk freely, laugh, share news, organize, and simply be. Away from the white gaze and the daily weight of the outside world. The salon was hair, and it was also freedom and community and power, all in one room. I need to step out of the story for a moment and be plain with you. I came into this expecting a set of beauty techniques. What I found was a whole civilization of skill and love and survival that this country never bothered to look at. Women building empires and sanctuaries and passing down mastery at kitchen tables, while carrying a wound the wider world had inflicted on them. It deserves far more than one video. Now back to Dela. Number 6, twice as polished to be allowed in. Dela understood a rule that shaped her whole working life. She had to be, at every moment, more perfectly groomed, more flawlessly pressed, more impeccably put together than any white stewardess beside her, because she was being judged twice as hard, and she was carrying the hopes of every black woman who would apply after her. The real pioneers lived exactly this. The first black stewardesses knew that a single mistake would be used against every woman who came next. So the perfection of her hair was not vanity, it was armor, and it was responsibility, worn on her head. Number 5, what it cost to be first. Let us honor the real women because they existed. The first Black stewardess for an American carrier was hired in 1958, chosen from a pool of hundreds of Black applicants by a regional airline, and she was a trained nurse who had fought her way in by filing a complaint against a major carrier that had rejected her for her race. On her flights, she was not even invited to eat with the rest of the crew. Another woman had to sue an airline and win in 1960 simply to be hired. These women broke the barrier by refusing to accept the answer no, and every Black woman in a uniform since has walked through the door they forced open. Number 4, the cruelty stacked. The first Black stewardess lost her job after only 6 months, not for any failure, but because she married. And the airlines of that era fired any stewardess who married. So a woman who had broken a racial barrier that had stood for the entire history of commercial flight was then pushed out by a different rule entirely. She had to be twice as good to get in, and then the same unjust system that governed all stewardesses removed her anyway. The barriers did not come one at a time, they came all at once, and Black women faced every one of them together. Number 3, the pride underneath the pressing. But do not mistake any of this for a story of women who felt small. Whatever the world outside told them, the tradition itself was carried with immense pride. A woman whose hair was freshly done, edges laid, pressed to a gleam, walking into church or into that airport terminal felt magnificent, and she was. The care taken was a statement of self-respect, a refusal to be diminished, a daily insistence on her own dignity in a world that kept trying to deny it. The pressing may have been demanded by an unjust world, but the pride was entirely her own, and no one could take it. Number 2, the natural crown was coming. And the story does not end in straightened hair, because history was about to turn. Even as Dela pressed her hair in 1963, a movement was rising that would, within a few years, declare that Black was beautiful, that natural hair was a crown to be worn with pride, and that the coiled texture the world had called bad was in fact glorious. The afro, the natural, the reclaiming of Black hair as it grew was just over the horizon. The daughters and granddaughters of the women pressing their hair at those kitchen tables would grow up to wear their natural texture as a banner and to call it rightly beautiful. Number 1, not a technique at all. What was really passed down? After the hot comb and the wrap and the satin scarf and the grease and the laid edges, here is what a mother was truly handing her daughter at that kitchen table. Not only how to do hair, she was handing down patience and skill and belonging and the knowledge of how to hold your head high in a world that did not want you to. She was handing down a whole tradition of Black women taking care of Black women at their own stoves and in their own salons when almost no one else would. She was handing down the lesson that you tend to yourself and to each other with love, and that your dignity is yours to keep no matter what anyone says. Dela learned all of that at her mother's table, along with the pressing, and it is why she could walk through that terminal alone and watch and doubted, and never once forget the truth of herself. She was never going to be anybody's second choice because her mother had told her so, with her hands, one Saturday evening at a time. 20 things. A comb heated on a stove, a wrap tied at night, a satin scarf, a whole language of edges and kitchens, an empire built by a washerwoman, a sanctuary in a salon, and a wound the world inflicted that these women carried with a grace it did not deserve. It was never just hair. It was work and dignity and belonging and love and survival, passed hand to hand and head to head across generations of women who were given almost nothing by the world outside and who built at their own kitchen tables something the world outside could never have built at all. She was never going to be anybody's second choice, and neither were her daughters, and they made sure of it themselves. And somewhere, right now, a Black woman is sitting in a chair, having her hair braided into a style her great-grandmother would have recognized in her bones. And her daughter is beside her, wearing her natural coils out and free and proud, in a way that great-grandmother was never allowed to. Neither of them presses their hair on a stove on Saturday night anymore, and they do not have to. But the grandmother remembers the smell of the hot comb and her mother's hands, and she knows that everything that let these two women sit here, free and beautiful and entirely themselves, was carried to them by women who did their hair by firelight and held their heads high and were never anybody's second choice, not for one single day. Thank you so much for watching. If this told a story you know in your heart or one you had never heard, give it a like and tell me in the comments where in the world you are watching from and who used to do your hair. If you want more forgotten history of the generations who came before us, please subscribe. It truly helps the channel. The next story is waiting for you right now.